Oh, hello, everybody, and welcome again to another edition of Pro Wrestling Inside Out. We forgot who was going to open the show, and I guess that's me. Rodney West, along with Jack Lord, and our special guest today, the Masked Saint, Chris Whaley, will join us today. Jack, take over.
Chris, great for you to be with us tonight. As we were talking right before we came on, Chris's wife's in the hospital undergoing some tests, having some liver issues. And first and foremost, we just want everybody to keep her in your prayers. And hopefully she'll get to come home here pretty quick and, get back to keeping Chris on the straight and narrow.
As she has for 46 years. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome. For anybody who has not seen the movie, The Masked Saint, it's on Amazon Prime, I believe. I know that's where I saw it just about 2 years ago, I think. It's a great movie. As I have read, it's not an actual biography type, but everything is based on true incidents that happened in your life and career. And if you haven't seen that, I encourage you to go watch it. But also, he's got the book out under the same name and tells that same story. And great read. Also available on Amazon Prime. Go pick that up. Excuse me. But Chris, welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out.
Well, Jack, it is an honor and a pleasure. It's a pleasure to talk with you. And I tell you, you did some great things in this business, and I appreciate all you did. And it is just great to finally meet up with you and talk with you.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen when you got two old Baptist boys in the same room, too.
There you go, man. It's going to be ugly.
If we just had dinner on the ground, we'd be set.
All right. Yeah.
I saw that real quick the other day about a picture of the Last Supper, and they said if the Baptist women had been in charge and they had this huge table spread of food out in front of them, and that's true. Ain't nobody will feed you like a Baptist woman will.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
But, Rodney, I'll kick it to you to get us started off with a few questions.
Chris, talk about your early days when you're growing up. What city were you growing up? Who was your inspirations to becoming a professional wrestler?
Well, I grew up in Central Florida. It's not too far from Winter Haven, about an hour from Orlando and an hour from Tampa. And I was really a sick boy all the time. I mean, just in and out of the hospital constantly. In the fourth grade, I had polio, viral encephalitis. I had to learn how to walk all over again. But I had a wonderful, godly doctor. He was a great, great guy. His name was Raymond LaRue. And he is the one who made me start going to a gym and working out, and he refused to let me give up, which I am so thankful for. And I had several more bouts in the hospital. And then finally, when I was in junior high school, they did a bunch of allergy tests on me, and they found out that I was allergic to everything. Wow. And so I started taking allergy shots when I was in junior high, and I took them up until I was a senior in college. But once they got me on those shots, amazing things started to happen. I started putting on weight, and then finally all that work in the gym paid off. And so that was, what got me in the shape to be a wrestler. But when I was in the hospital, and you get your days and your nights mixed up, and late at night, just about the only thing on in my day was professional wrestling. And I watched it as a little boy, and my heroes were Eddie Graham and Don Curtis and Joe Scarpa and Red Bastine and all of those guys. I just loved watching professional wrestling. And then when my wife and I graduated from college together, and we came back to Central Florida, and she was a high school math teacher, and she was, grading papers one day, and I had a copy of the Tampa Tribune, and I was looking at it, and it said wanted professional wrestlers, and I was in the best shape of my life, and I picked it up and ran over to my wife. I said, look at this, and she looked at it. She was grading papers. She looked at it, and then she rolled her eyes and started grading papers again. And I said, I'm going. I went in, I got a bag, and I put some shorts and shoes and t-shirt, and I got in my car, and I drove over to Tampa, and I walked in, and there was the great Malenko. And I mean, I hated that guy when I was a kid, but man, did I love him as an adult. I got to train. What? Go ahead.
About what year was this?
That was 1978.
Okay.
1978. And I got to train with his boys, Dean and Jody. Jody was the better of the two. Dean did better, worldwide, but Jody, he was unbelievable. But both of them
I have heard that.
Yeah. And of course, Larry was just one of the greatest guys in the world. And, he trained some great guys. I mean, he trained my buddy Mark Mero, who was a WWE Intercontinental Champion, the WCW World Television Champion. He trained, I'm trying to think of a bunch of them now. I can't, but he trained a bunch of guys, and they all did very well. So that was what got it started, man. I was hooked from the moment I walked into the gym. I was hooked on it.
Hey, so tell us about the first day of training. How was that? How did that go?
Hey, it was that night. I signed up that night, and I mean, I got in there, and it's kind of funny, Jack, because I didn't know it was a work. I was ready to do battle, man. So that was a different thing there, but you get on there and you start how to do a headlock, how to do a headlock takedown, how to do an arm bar takedown, and start. So I started that night in the gym, and I went back every night, and I trained for about 6 months before I had my first match against the grappler.
Wow. Okay, so the grappler, Gordon Nelson.
Yeah.
Gordon Nelson. Tell us how that went. That first match.
I was as nervous as a dog trying to pass a peach seed sideways, but I did okay. Excuse me. Nobody can train you to get into the match. I mean, all the running that you can do and all the cardio you can do, there's nothing that trains you for wrestling until you get into the ring.
Exactly.
When your adrenaline is going and you're nervous, and boy, I was cottonmouth, but I did okay. He broke my nose in the first match. I like to believe it was an accident, but I don't think it was an accident. But
and what city was this in?
That was in Tampa.
In Tampa, and it was at the Sportatorium there.
No, it wasn't in the Sportatorium. It was another place. Heck, I can't even think of it. But no,
it was that part was probably a blur. You knew you wrestled that night, you just didn't know where. That was,
yeah.
Well, I mean, you got your. I mean, I can understand those first few seconds before you go through that door and hit the aisle.
Yeah.
It's probably all of a blur. Because
well, it was a lot different in that day. They just had like a steel bars around the ring to keep the crowd back and all. It was nothing like it is today. I had a lady pull me out of the ring one time. So I mean, they could get up. I was working as a heel, and I was beating this guy up in the corner, and she got up and pulled me out of the ring, and she didn't know what to do with me once she got me out of the ring. But it is so different today, with all of the security they have for the guys and everything, which is a good thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So when was your so you've been going through your training, you had your first match. When was it that wrestling became your full-time job, should say?
Well, I tried to make it that, from the moment that I started, but in that day, I couldn't get enough matches, but I worked every time they would let me work, and I did more in my last 4 or 5 years than I did in my first 6 years as far as getting to work full time. But in those days, I was doing a lot of independent matches, and Jack, in those days, independent guys were not looked upon very highly. Didn't matter who trained you. And then plus Larry, the great Malenko, and Eddie Graham, they were not getting along very well. And of course, Graham owned the territory. And so he was, he would hold it against you if you were trained by Larry. So it was a different world in that day. My goodness, there must be 1,000 independent shows working all over the United States now. It's amazing now how many independents they got. But in that day, there just wasn't a lot of them. But man, it didn't matter to me. It didn't matter to me where I worked or who I was working for, just as long as I was working.
So when were you first time you wrestled as the Masked Saint?
I got into wrestling. I was at that time I was trying to be a youth pastor. When you're 23 years old, nobody wants to have a 23-year-old pastor. So if you wanted experience, you had to be a youth pastor.
Right.
And so I was looking for a position as a youth pastor when I got into wrestling. And then after I'd been in wrestling about 6 months, I finally got a call from a church to be their youth pastor. And so I had to get out of wrestling. And my wife was pregnant with our first child. And they just really don't pay youth pastors very much. And we were starving because my wife could not work because she was pregnant. And so I went to the pastor and I said, I could wrestle a couple of nights a week and it would really help us financially. And he said, no, we're not going to turn this church into a circus. And he said, no. And so that Saturday, I was home and I had TV on and I was watching wrestling, and I was watching one of my buddies on there that worked under a hood. And I said, that's it. I never worked under a hood before. And I said, that's it. I can come up with a gimmick and I can wear a mask and nobody will know who it is. So they won't know. So that's how I came up with the Saint. And I ordered them. Who'd you get your stuff from? I got mine from K&H in Youngstown, Ohio. That's where I got the mask. I got the white mask, white trunks, white tights, white boots, white cape. Man, I was the all perennial baby face, and I became the Saint. And it was kind of neat, because I worked a couple nights a week, and I would show up at church and I'd have bruises all over me and a broke arm and stuff like that, broke nose, and, all kinds of stuff. And they'd say, what happened to you? And I said, I fell down, which was true. But I had a lot of help falling down. And so that's how the Masked Saint how the Saint came about. The Masked Saint came about when I left wrestling and became a full-time pastor. That's when the Masked Saint was born.
Jack, go ahead.
Right. So you had quite a bit of time in the Florida rings. Tell us about your time in Texas. When did you go there?
I went to Texas in 1985. Matter of fact, I had to get Larry's help. I was asking him, who do I talk to? And he said, talk to Bronco Lubitsch. Bronco was refereeing in those days, but he was a great wrestler in his own right. And then I don't know if you remember Charlie Lay, Jack. Charlie, he worked at the office in Tampa, and longtime wrestler, and then he became a referee. But Charlie and his precious wife Iris, they just became two of the most precious people to me. And Charlie had already retired. He was living in Florence, Mississippi. So whenever we would go to Texas, we'd stop in Florence and see Charlie and Iris and then head to Texas. But I got into, I don't know if you remember one of the first black wrestlers, Tom Jones.
Yes. Very familiar with Tom.
Yeah, Tom ran the office there at the Stockyards in Fort Worth, and Tom became a real close friend and helped me a lot to get work. And so that's where it started. I got to work with some of the best names in the business there. The Freebirds and Iceman King Parsons. The Ultimate Warrior was not the Ultimate Warrior in that day. I think he was working as the Dingo Warrior or something then. And
right.
Flamboyant Eric Embry, and of course the Von Erichs. The Von Erichs, the biggest names in Texas were the Dallas Cowboys and the Von Erichs. They were it. So that was quite a thrill.
Oh, that's awesome. So what was your total time in the business? You started 78, did you say?
Yep, 78 to 88. I got out, Jack, when I was 34 years old. I was in the best shape of my life, and I had the most success that I had had. But, God had called me into the ministry. And so I retired from wrestling in May of 1988. And then I went to Florida and became a pastor and have been a pastor ever since. I did get to work a few times after that because I did some benefits. I mean, I still had all these friends in the business. And so I had a lady in my church, the very first one, I had a lady in my church who was dying from cancer. And I did a fundraiser because they had unbelievable medical bills. And so I did a fundraiser. And had some great names on there. Had Ravishing Rick Rude, Dory Funk Jr., Bugsy McGraw, Kevin Sullivan, the Warlord. My goodness, Nikita Koloff, excuse me, not Khrushchev, Koloff. I had some great names on there, and then Dory got me a shot on an ECW show that they were doing over and over. And I worked 18-man over the top rope battle royal, and that was kind of neat for ECW. But then just doing a few other benefits. But I got out of the business, but I never got it out of my system, and I still love it. We have a Legends Luncheon that happens over in Tampa every other month. The next one will be in August, and B. Brian Blair, one of the Killer Bees. Yep. Brian Blair, he's the one that heads that up, and I actually got inducted August of 2019 into the Wrestling Legends over there. But you get to see a bunch of the old guys. Buddy Colt, who recently died not too long ago. Yeah. Buddy was always there. Bugsy McGraw, Jerry Briscoe. And Haku.
I know that the guy with the greatest punch in the history of wrestling also makes that every time. Bob Cook.
The Cooker.
I know the Cooker. So the next time you see him, stiff him and tell him that I don't punch like he does.
Okay. Well, I saw him. I was at WrestleCon in Jacksonville about 3 weeks ago, I think. And Bob, and he was running the Cauliflower Alley table behind me. And so I know Bob. He's a great guy.
He really is.
Yeah, and he runs. He actually runs the Legends Luncheon, but Brian Blair gets credit for it.
Yeah. I think a lot of Bob. I even bought his T-shirt, and he's never bought mine. So that tells you I'm a better friend than he is.
Well, that's I'll say something about that to him.
Yeah, because I have them for sale at ProWrestlingTees.com.
Yeah. Hey, you know who gave him the name the Cooker, don't you?
No.
That was Terry Funk. Terry Funk called him the Cooker. Yeah.
I know he has a lot of love and respect, Terry.
Yeah. Well, I did that benefit you know, and Dory was on it. Dory said, "Why don't you call Terry and see if Terry will come down and work it?" I said, I said, "Why don't you call him? I don't want to call him." Yeah, call him. And so I called him, and this is the way he answered it. He answered the phone. "Howdy, partner." I said, "Hey, Terry, this is Chris Whaley." "Who?" "Chris Whaley." "What do you want?" I said, "We're doing a benefit down here, and Dory said to give you a call and see if you'd like to work it." I'll wrestle you for the gate." I said, it's a benefit, Terry. It's a benefit. "I'll wrestle you for half the gate." "No, it's a benefit." "No, you click." That was it.
Oh boy.
Rodney, I'll turn it over to you.
And when you look back at your career in the wrestling, certainly there is a match that stands out, or an opponent that stands out that you are most proud of. Tell us about that.
Well, actually, several of them, but I guess the most memorable because of how well he did in the business. You know, I worked against The Undertaker. He wasn't The Undertaker then, but I think he was like 23 years old. And you know, he's like 6'8", 315 pounds. He's got a wingspan that you wouldn't believe. And so I had already worked that night. This was in Dallas, I think. I'd already worked that night, and I was taking my boots off, and the promoter came in and said the guy that was going to work against Mark wasn't going to be able to make it, and he needed somebody to work twice. And I said, I'll do it. I knew this guy was going to be a star. And so anyway, this was a Friday night, and this story, matter of fact, this story is in my book. But on Friday night, I would take my girls. I have, my wife, and I have 2 daughters. And I would take them on Friday night. And then after I worked, we would go out and have what we call Friday night fun night. And so anyway, after I worked, they would give me a certain amount of time before they'd meet me in the parking lot. So I had to send a referee out to find my wife and girls and said, "Please tell them don't leave because I'm going to work again." And I said, "Don't tell them who I'm going to work against." And he said, okay. So he went out and he found them. He came back. He said, "I got them. They're going to sit there and wait." So anyway, of course, I had to get in the ring first. I'm in the ring, and then the lights came down, and this hideous music came on, and this guy walked out. And when he did, I found my girls in the crowd, and when he walked out, and my little girls saw him, they started crying. And my wife, I noticed her eyes got real big, and then she picked the purse up. She picked her purse up, and she started going through her purse. Well, anyway, we had the match. It was a great match. I mean, you say, what do you remember? It was just a great match. He did the full body press, and that's a long ways up, buddy. When he's 6'8" and your arms are that long, and he did the, and that was a long way down too. Anyway, the match was over. We had a good time. We were on our way back to Fort Worth, and I looked over at the rearview mirror, and both my girls were asleep. And I looked at my wife, and I said, "Hey, honey," I said, "right before the match started, I saw you pick your purse up, and you were going crazy." I said, "What were you doing?" And she thought for a moment. She said, "Oh, I was looking for the checkbook, make sure you'd paid the insurance." Yeah, she had a lot of faith in me. It really did. But that was a great match. I got to. Eric Embry was the world junior heavyweight champion. I got to work against Eric in Jackson, Mississippi, and that was just a great match. I got to work against the Freebirds. I got to work against Iceman King Parsons, and I got to work against the Warrior. So those were all some great memories for me. And so, also, the missing link was working in Texas at that time too.
Yeah.
Wow. And about what year was that? You remember what year that was?
Between 1985 and 1988.
Oh, excellent. So there's always those stories on the road that don't that are kind of comical, kind of mess ups. Got any of those?
Oh yeah.
Let's hear one of those.
I was traveling with Solomon Grundy. I don't know. You remember Solomon Grundy, Jack?
I do.
He had a kind of a Haystacks Calhoun gimmick. He wore bib overalls that were cut off at the knees, and he worked barefooted. He had a big cowbell around his neck. He weighed 465 pounds, and he was a great worker. I mean, he could do a drop kick. I mean, he could do bumps off the ropes. He was just unbelievable. But we were traveling together, and we got to the venue where we were going to work, and we got there early, and we were the only ones there. And he said, "Hey, Whaley, I got to take a crap, man." So he goes in the bathroom, and he's in there for a long time, and he's not coming out. So I went in. I said, "Hey, Grundy, you okay? I've been calling for you, man. What's your problem? I've been calling." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "There's no toilet paper in here." I said, "Well, let me look." And I looked in the other stall. There was no toilet paper there. I went over to the women's bathroom. There was no toilet paper there. I went to all the bathrooms. There was no toilet paper. And I found a security guy, and he said, "Well, they'll be here to put them in a little bit, but they don't put them in until, about an hour before the show or whatever." He said, "I don't know where they keep it." I went back in and told Grundy. I said, "Grundy, man," I told him about it. And he said, "Whaley, have you got change for a 10? I said, "Yeah." He wiped his butt with 10 $1 bills. That was the most expensive crap in the history, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, that was hilarious. That was hilarious, man. Yeah. Well.
Oh my goodness. Well, we have some comments here from the insiders. Let's go through some of them. We will. Let's see. Joel Bateman. He is telling everybody hi. Michael Rollerson. We always get that confused. Here we are. We just keep the trend up there. We have with us Seppo Kangas. I hope I got that right. Chaplain, Freddie Roper, Roaster Roper. There we go. And he was
I'm a chaplain. I'm a chaplain too.
Yes, chaplain. Then we have, we're going to talk about that here in just a second as well. And then he wants to talk about Bristol referee Roman, I mean. Hey, my bald-headed brother Jack and the rest of you guys loved that movie. He loved the Saint movie.
Thank you.
Michael Barr, hello, Chris from Southeast Alabama. And tell us about where you're from in Alabama while we're doing that.
I'm from a little town called Florella. I was born in Florella. It's so close to Alabama that you just spit over the line, so they just call it. Make up their mind whether it was Florida or Alabama, so they call it Florella.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Michael Barr's not far from there. He's in Dothan.
Yep. And my mom and dad. My dad was from Sampson, Alabama, and my mom was from Opp, Alabama. And
right down the road from Andalusia.
That's right.
I have relatives. I have relatives in Opp and in Sampson and in Elba and in Andalusia and in Dothan. Yeah.
Wow. Michael Rollerson, prayers for your wife, Chris, and that's from all of us. Joel Bateman, I like autobiographical pro wrestling books. Michael Barr says he is also was from Winter Haven.
Yeah.
Richard Hood is with us tonight. Roger Dunn, I work for APW in Pensacola, Florida.
All right.
So, Mickey Mayfield, Oral Roberts had a similar story about his childhood.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a joke or what.
James William Lawrence III, hello. And of course, he was late. We'll talk to you about that later on.
I'm almost out of cigars, James.
Michael Barr, he was asking how you got the name Masked Saint.
Okay. Well, When I went from being a wrestler to a pastor, and that's the story that's in the book of how the Masked Saint got started. But I started handling things a little bit different than most pastors do. I think the first incident that happened, I had a lady that would come in late every Sunday. She was the last one in, and she would be the first one to leave. She'd drop her kids off in our children's program, and just didn't get to know her that much. And then one Sunday, she came in and she had sunglasses on. And after the service, she was the last one out, not the first one. And she came up and she took my hand, and she had her head down and tears were coming down. And I just lifted her sunglasses up, and she had 2 black eyes. And man, I tell you what, it just really takes a dirt bag to hit a woman. And it just infuriated me. And I told her, I'm going to go see your husband. And she was like, well, no. And she started crying. Said, he'll hurt you. And I said, I ain't worried about it. So I went to see him, and I called him outside and said, look, I just wanted to see how you do against somebody who's able to fight back, because, you know, only cowards pick on women. And so I handled it a little bit differently than a pastor would handle it. And then I just started having incident after incident after incident that I handled differently than a pastor would handle them. I'm not telling everybody to do that, but that's the way I did it. And I had so many of those stories. And I was telling my wife, I said, you know, this would make a good series, you know, a TV series. I always loved Michael Landon. You know, he had good, wholesome TV programs. And I thought, boy, this would be a good one for Michael Landon. And of course, he passed away. So I never saw myself as a writer. But one Saturday, I just sat down at the computer and I started writing, and I gave it to my wife. Tell me what you think. And she said, keep going. And so, you know, every story in the book is based upon an actual incident that happened. They changed those for the movie because it was filmed in Sault Ste. Marie, Canada, and there was snow on the ground. It was supposed to take place in Florida, but they couldn't say that because of the snow on the ground. So they made a fictitious name in Michigan about that. So the movie just changed some of the things that happened in the book and made them in a different way. But that's the way movies are. But
yeah, sure.
You know, it was based upon true events, but the book is closer to the real than the movie was.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'll throw this in there real quick. I was ordained as a deacon and served many years. And somebody asked me one time, because I had a few similar incidents like you did. And they said, well, how do you justify that between being, you know, a wrestler, you know, doing some of the things that you've done and being a deacon? And I said, well, you know, the church is real big on laying on of hands. I just do it a little different way.
So there was some of them got slain in the spirit there, Brother Jack?
Yes, sir.
I love it.
I've been in a lot of altercations, I shall say, in my life. I never started one, but I ended quite a few.
Yeah.
Excellent. Michael Barr asked, where was your favorite area to wrestle?
You know, I had 2 of them. My favorite was Florida and Texas. You know, and in our day, when Jack and I first got into it, there were, you know, territories. That was before Vince McMahon took over and made the WWE into a $1 billion business. But Texas was quite a territory. You had the Funks that were in West Texas, and the Von Erichs in East Texas, and Putski was down in South Texas. And of course, in Florida, Championship Wrestling from Florida, it just covered the whole state. And everybody wanted to come to Florida and work. So Florida and Texas were my two favorite.
Richard Hood, he wanted to know, how long did it take you to get used to wearing the mask?
After the first match, it was kind of difficult, the first match. But then it's like anything else. You just get used to it. And if there's something you don't like, you just make adjustments and keep going. But the last time I worked was a benefit, and it was for a home for retarded children in Citrus, called Crystal River, Florida. Excuse me. And I gave them my mask to auction off, to use I didn't have any use for it. Yeah, I wish I had kept it because all my stuff is in the Hall of Fame in Wichita Falls, Texas, and I had to buy another mask to give them for that. But so the last match that I worked, which was probably 1993 or 94, I didn't work with a mask, and it felt like I was naked out there. I tell you, it was so different. I hadn't worked without a hood in so long, but you get used to it. Get used to it.
Michael Barr, great calling, being a pastor and pro wrestling. That worked well for you.
Yeah,
sure did.
It did.
Here we go. Let's see how this one goes. Michael Barr, how did you work the revivals and wrestling at the same time? How did the two interact?
It's amazing that he asked that. We were having a revival at the last church that I pastored, which was First Baptist Church of Longwood, Florida. We were in revival with a great evangelist. Matter of fact, he's been in Gadsden a bunch. His name is Rick Corum. I don't know if you've heard of him, Jack, but a great evangelist. But Rick was the evangelist, and I was at the church, and I told my secretary, I said, I need to run to the hospital, make a visit before service tonight. I'd already went home and put my suit on, so I walked out the door. And we also had a school that met on our campus. Matter of fact, my youngest daughter was one of their teachers. And when I walked out the door, I heard somebody dropping the F-bomb out in the parking lot. And that'll get your attention in a church parking lot. And I looked over, and here's this big guy on the other side of the parking lot, and he's slapping a pregnant girl. And I screamed out. I said, "Hey!" And he turned around and he shot a bunch of expletives back at me. And when he did, I just started walking towards him. I dropped my glasses. I took my tie off. I took my coat off. And he's cussing at me the whole time and he gets up in front of me. And I told him, I said, "Man," I said, "you're in a church parking lot. You got no business using that kind of language, and you certainly don't have any business hitting a pregnant girl. What's wrong with you?" And he said, "It is none of your blankety blank business." And he, kind of leaped towards me. And when he did, I tagged him, and we started into it. We started, getting into it there in the parking lot. And I ended up picking him up and body slamming him on the concrete.
Proper, absolutely proper.
And I knelt down and I put my knee in his throat, and I said, I would just, pure adrenaline. I said, "I'm going to let you up. When I do, you get your fanny off of this parking lot. You understand me?" And I let him up, and he started cussing again. And I just took my phone and dialed 911, and I told him I needed a cop, and I knew all the cops anyway. But after it was all over, I said, "Oh my God, I can't believe here I am, the pastor of a church in revival, and what I just did." And so that night after the revival service was over, I stood before the church. I said, "Folks, I got to tell you what I did." And I told them, I said, "I did this." I said, I'm so sorry. I've embarrassed the church." And when I told them, they all stood to their feet and applauded, so. Awesome. I didn't get in trouble, but that, how'd you do wrestling and revivals? That's one time where the wrestling and the revival came together pretty good.
Excellent. Paul Hatchett is back with us. Let's see. We have Joel Bateman. The Undertaker may be the best big man in professional wrestling. And
Yeah, I tell you, how many WrestleManias did he work?
Most all of them until recent ones, right?
Yeah.
John Walker, he's the son of Johnny Walker. Robert Walker, son of John Walker, Mr. Wrestling 2. Did you ever wrestle with him?
No, I did not. Boy, that would have been a true pleasure. And God bless you and your dad, man. He was one of the best.
Charles Alfred said he saw the movie. Michael Barr, again with a question. Did you have a chance to meet any of the wrestlers from the Southeastern Territory, Southeastern Championship Wrestling?
Name some of them.
That would be Ron Fuller, Robert Fuller, Jimmy Golden, Bob Armstrong, Brad Armstrong.
Yeah. I have a good buddy, Mark Miro. And matter of fact, if my wife gets out of the hospital and everything goes well, we're supposed to be in Gainesville, Georgia on Saturday because Mark is celebrating his 61st birthday. And he's supposed to do one of those high-flying moves that he used to do off the top rope, off the top of his brother Joel's deck on his lake house. And he's supposed to do that. And, there'll be a bunch. I think DDP is supposed to be there, Diamond Dallas Page, and I don't know who else. But I just know that Brad Armstrong and Mark were very, very good friends.
Yeah.
Charles Alfred. Revival in wrestling. That's how and that's how you put them together. He explained how you put them together right there. This goes to show a wrestler is the baddest man on the planet. Well, just about. And of course,
Jack will tell you the wrestler always beats a boxer.
Exactly. And then we have Chris Bateman, and he's happy. Michael Barr yet again. Prayers out to your wife, and God bless her and yourself. Tell us what you're doing nowadays.
I just finished my third book. It's called Mr. President with a question mark. You won't remember this guy, but Jack will remember. There used to be a comedian by the name of Pat Paulson.
Yep, I remember Pat.
He would run for president every 4 years.
Yep.
Well, this is a story about a sleazy comedian who runs for president every 4 years. And unbeknownst to the celebrities that he gets autographs from, they're actually signing an agreement to be his vice presidential candidate with him. And he gets a lot of publicity out of it. Well, he gets the World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion's autograph, but the world champion is actually signing an agreement to be his vice president. Well, there's a big scandal with the Republicans and a big scandal with the Democrats, and the comedian wins the presidency. And while he's making his acceptance speech, he has a heart attack, and it puts the world heavyweight champion into the presidency. And then he starts putting his wrestling buddies in his cabinet, and it is a hoot.
Honestly, I don't think we could do any worse.
No, we couldn't do any worse than Uncle Joe is doing, that's for sure. But I still, get a lot of opportunities to speak, and I just love every opportunity. These days, I'm getting invitations from churches to come, and they show the movie, and then after they show the movie, I get to speak, and they get to ask me questions about that, and I really enjoyed doing that. Up until last year, I was on staff at First Baptist Orlando, or as we call it here, Baptist World. It's called Baptist World because there's 20,000 members. And wow. My youngest daughter is still on staff there. She's the one of the worship leaders at First Orlando. But when COVID struck last year, they got rid of all the old people, and I was one of them. So. Wow. But that's okay because I stay busy. I get to speak and take care of my wife.
What kind of questions do they ask you at those seminars where they show the movie and then afterwards? Give us an idea of what kind of questions they ask you.
They want to know how true is it to real life, and what was it like, working with Roddy Piper, and they'll just pull a scene out of the movie and say, tell us about this. And tell us about, it was that close to real life and stuff. And so I get to talk about that and talk about how the book is closer to the real thing than the movie was. But I did, love talking about Roddy Piper. He was such a great guy. I'd worked against him like 30 years before the movie. And I knew he wouldn't remember me, but he lied. Oh, yeah, brother, I remember you. But, Piper was not only one of the best guys in the business, but he was a great actor. He really was. He was a great actor.
Really was. Chris Hardesty, did you ever know Big Red? He was also a minister.
That name doesn't stick out. I don't know. Did you know him, Jack?
Yeah, he was out of the Atlanta area.
Okay.
He did stuff for, I think, Georgia Championship Wrestling and some of the shows that came in the interim with Georgia Championship Wrestling also.
Yeah, I did.
All right. Hopefully your weather will clear up there, Charles. Another question. Where can we get the book?
Oh, well, I'm having my website redone. And so if he tries next week, he can probably order it on my website and I could sign it and have it sent to him. But if he wants to go ahead and get it, you can get it on Amazon.
Could you hold it right up? Could you hold it right up in the middle of your face there? We're going to zoom in there and we'll let everybody says it's The Masked Saint Husband, Pastor and Hero by Chris Whaley. And tremendous book.
There's my picture.
Wait a minute. Let me get back in there again.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Oh,
excellent.
Oh, there we go. That was before gravity got a hold of me.
I also found a graphic. Let's see if we can put this up and see if this is something else. This is the movie here, right? The DVD.
Yep. You can order I think you can order the movie on Amazon, but if you wait till next week, you can get a signed copy off of my website.
Now the mask that's in this picture here, that's the actual mask, the same design that you wrestled with.
No, I didn't have any of those. Mine was just a solid white mask. Yeah. See, right? Yeah. Mine was just I can show you on this right here.
Okay, hold on a second. We'll bring you back up.
That was I go the wrong way on that.
That's the way I do every time.
Yeah.
There we go. It seems to be clearing up a little bit. So a solid white mask.
Yeah.
Excellent. Jack can get you fixed up with those if you should need some. By the
way. There you go.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, give us the website. You talked about your website. How can people get to your website?
It's just themasked.com, themaskedsaint.com.
Okay, themaskedsaint.com. Can you get the movie there as well? Or just the books? Movies and book, the whole shebang.
Yeah, I actually wrote another one. This is it's called Harold's Heavenly Christmas, and it's going to be made into a.
Hold it again.
Hold it again. Oh yeah.
Yeah. There you
Harold's Heavenly Christmas. It's actually being made into a Hallmark movie. My wife and I are suckers for those. Christmas.
We love those. Yeah, we love those. They start playing them in the first of in October, right?
They're playing them now.
Yeah, they're playing them now.
Christmas in July.
Christmas in July. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
good.
Jack.
Before we go, become a supporter, $2.99 a month. Go to our Facebook page. There's a button right there at the very top. And for $2.99 a month, you can listen in as we pre-tape some episodes. There are a lot of other benefits coming your way. Remind everybody that tickets are on sale for the first Championship Wrestling live event coming up October the 8th in Lafayette, Georgia. So make sure you get your tickets for that. Wrestle South is this Saturday night. Y'all come on out. Tell me hi. But you better get there early because once the show starts, I don't talk to nobody. Just being honest.
Exactly.
And ProWrestlingTees.com. go get your official Pro Wrestling Inside and Out t-shirt, and there's one of my pretty face in there too, because you never know when you might need to clean a car.
And let's not forget to get books for The Masked Saint at themasksaint.com, masksaint.com. And as always, we like to thank all of our insiders. Thank you, Chris, for joining us.
Thank you, man. Hey, it's a real honor being with you guys. I will make sure that I'll divvy up the $2.99 a month, because what's it called on Facebook?
Pro Wrestling Inside and Out.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'll send you the link later tonight when we get done. When we leave here, we're going to go in and pre-tape a couple other episodes of some other stuff that we got going on.
Hey, I just feel honored that you guys wanted me, and I thank you so much. And Jack, what a great pleasure to meet you, buddy.
Thank
God
you.
bless you. You're not still working, are you?
Oh, no, sir. I retired 12 years ago from in the ring, but I book and, help run shows. And I honestly, what I do now, I enjoy more than ever taking a bump. I love molding that next generation and helping these young men and women find their way.
Well, I had somebody ask me last week about, am I still working? I said, I'm 67 years old. I don't think anybody wants. I said, but you know what? If I could get up off the floor, I would work. I could. So I still got.
Well, I'm 62, and I took a bump about 1.5 years ago, and it took me a month to get over it. So I'm not taking.
Yeah, I still got the flex though.
Yeah.
I can do that too, but it cramps, so I don't. All right, Chris, thank you so much. Insiders, thank you so much.
We'll be here.
Yeah, we're fixing to go over. Insiders, join us on the rebound. See you guys there. Thanks, Chris.
All righty. God bless you, man.
Whoops.